The Nintendo Wii. Boy, this was a console, and boy, do we all have many opinions about it today. Cutting to the chase, the Wii was a revolutionary video game console at the time. It had a huge influence on the gaming industry when it launched in 2006. And while we love to mock them now, the Wii's motion controls really impacted gaming in such a way that it hadn't been seen in years. It really was, to borrow that cringe 2010s tech bro term, disruptive. Nintendo really recaptured that family demographic with the likes of Wii Sports. Kids played it, parents played it, grandmas played it. Nursing homes had this thing, and still do apparently.
I'm at the Northwestern Senior Center in Albion on a Wii Bowling Day. Wii Bowling has been on the calendar at the Senior Center since the gaming system was first introduced nearly 20 years ago.
I think your opinions on the Wii, like many things in life, are shaped by your perspective and your age at the time. For aging millennials like myself, who were in their 20s when the system launched, it was appealing, although it was also notably gimmicky. And we looked past the system's clearly inferior specs in favor of the quality assurance of Nintendo games. I mean, this led to some admittedly fond memories, as well as some not-so-fond memories. Now, for the kids who were in their formative years in elementary school when the Wii came out, I can imagine that the console left an indelible mark on their lives. So I work at a school, and I was in the presence of a group of 15 to 18-year-old boys like 2 years ago. And they were doing one of those online tier lists where you rank a bunch of stuff, and they were ranking video game systems over the decades. One kid, who was probably 17 at the time, said, "Wii, definitely S tier." And none of the other kids objected. It's cliche and a bit trite, but it still goes to show that the Wii was to Gen Z what the Nintendo and Super Nintendo were to millennials. My personal history with the Wii goes back to the system's launch. I was 20 when the Wii came out in 2006. I had just returned from a study abroad semester in Italy, and the Wii had launched in November of that year, and I came home in the middle of December. And my brother had, amazingly, purchased me a Wii for Christmas. Now remember, the system had completely sold out, and remained sold out for months thereafter. So he was stoked when he was able to snag one for me. He bought me a few games, notably The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, which I thoroughly enjoyed. However, and this is a cliche, Wii Sports was really a hit in my household. The Wii is often cited with bringing families back to gaming, and that did happen for me as my siblings and I would get together for bowling or tennis. I think above all, those memories are what I cherish the most from this console. Not the motion control gaming, but just the enjoyment I had playing with my siblings and us all just laughing and having a good time. And all of this said, I gotta be honest, the Wii is just hard to go back to. The motion gimmick was already showing its age only a few years after the system's launch. And it isn't terribly appealing to play today in the year of our Lord 2026. Other things are just plain frustrating. Until I fired the system back up, I completely forgot how annoying it was to navigate the menus using the Wii Remote. Having to set up the little bar for tracking the Wii Remote's movements also added another annoying piece of plastic to my overcrowded TV stand. I've never been that snobbish about graphics. However, the visuals on Wii games just don't look too keen on a 4K TV. The system's lack of HD output really hampered the Wii during the latter part of the 7th generation of consoles. Speaking personally, although I imagine many naive people like me had these thoughts back then, I didn't really understand high-definition visuals, or I didn't really care. I didn't really appreciate them, so when I got the Wii and I'd heard that it didn't have HD, it just didn't bother me. I didn't realize at the time that the system's lack of HD was going to be such a massive drawback, as the price of HD TVs became more and more affordable over that generation. Clearly, I wasn't paying attention enough. I mean, I still had a 20-inch CRT TV in my dorm, on which I played my PS2 and later the Wii. Also, I was probably broke. As this console generation progressed, I admittedly became pretty envious looking at the clearly superior visuals on the Xbox 360 and PS3. I would eventually get both of those systems down the line. Nevertheless, the Wii still made an impact on my gaming life. I played so many great titles from Nintendo. including the various Zelda and Mario games. Super Mario Galaxy remains one of the system's best games, and that is one of the few Wii discs I still have in my possession. As for the original 2006 Wii, I still have it, GameCube controller ports and all. Now, it did conk out at one point, I think it was 2012. Some aspect of the motherboard was fried, and this OG Wii stopped working entirely and would not even boot up. However, as a birthday present, my former girlfriend at the time paid $100 to get it repaired. When I got the Wii back in the mail, all of my save data and games were wiped. So I lost all progress and also had to re-download all of the titles again. Now remember, Nintendo was, and in certain modern cases, let's be real, still is, bad at online infrastructure and commerce. Your downloaded games were tied to your console, not to a profile, a standard already adopted by Microsoft, Sony, and Valve for years at that point. So if the console broke and you didn't get it repaired, then you lost those games. Ironically, by the time my Wii was repaired, my interest in the console was already fading, and just a year later, I bought the Wii U. So I then began the process of transferring all of my digital game purchases from the Wii to the Wii U. I then promptly packaged it up in its original box and packed it away in a closet. And that's my personal story about the Wii, or at least part of it. So in an effort to continue to clear out my backlog, I thought about how there are some games on the console that I had never finished, or in some cases really hadn't played much. So it's with that, I decided that the best thing for me to do would be to dive straight in and examine all of my Wii digital games, all of my Virtual Console and WiiWare downloads. And that's what we're gonna do here. And just a reminder, as I said before, I had transferred all the Wii games to the Wii U, and so that's how I played these games for this retrospective, buried deep in the recesses of the Wii U's backwards compatible functionality. Over the course of a few weeks, I took a stab at mostly all of the games I have, and I'm gonna go over each title I played right here. Because I no longer have much of a physical collection, I decided to keep this retrospective strictly digital. I am going to play these games in the order in which I played them since I began this project, so quality will vary with each passing title. Starting with Princess Tomato and the Salad Kingdom. Okay, so how did we get here? Alright, let me start by saying that I just cannot help myself. Nintendo has shuttered 3 digital storefronts, Wii, Wii U, and 3DS, over the course of the past half-decade. And in every instance, I have succumbed to my intense feelings of FOMO, resulting in my decision to snap up titles that will no longer be available once those stores go down. And that's how we got to this oddity from the NES, Princess Tomato and the Salad Kingdom. This is an old-school adventure game in the most basic form. You progress through the game by clicking on commands like move, check, use, give, dump. I recall seeing a guy talk about this game like 10 years ago, and I thought it looked quirky enough that it'd be to my liking. Well, I tried it back in 2019 when the Wii shop shuttered, and I couldn't get very far. Nor could I get very far when I just tried playing it again myself now. I kept hitting dead ends, and I was unable to enter the castle, which I believe was the first major move in the game. While I do find these adventure games appealing, I'm admittedly not very good at them. Combine that with the very simple visuals and obtuse controls since you have to navigate menus with a D-pad, and the result was a dismal experience. Moving on, Cave Story. I consider Cave Story the original indie game. I mean, that's not technically accurate, as games have been developed by one person, really going back to the beginning of gaming itself with things like the ZX Spectrum and the Atari 2600. However, in the context of the modern indie game scene that we have been living through over the past 2 decades, I think Cave Story fits that description really well. So this game came out in 2004, and it was developed by one person. His name, Daisuke Amaya, from Japan, also known as Pixel. He literally made every aspect of this game: art, music, gameplay, etc. Amaya released it for free on the internet, and since then, it has gotten remade multiple times. I respect Cave Story and its creator, but man, is this game difficult. I never finished it back in the day, and I didn't even want to try playing it very far for this mission to capture footage. I mean, the game plays fine, the platforming is enjoyable, and the shooting was fun, although also imprecise. It has a good vibe. I never played the revamped 3DS version, so maybe that's better. But either way, I can't really go back to this one. Final Fantasy IV, The After Years. I have a bad relationship with Final Fantasy games. I never finish them. And not in the way where I play for a bit and then put it down just because I'm not interested. No. I play through the game, almost to the end, can't really beat the boss, and I just give up. I did this with 3 notable titles: Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X, and Final Fantasy IV. So what better way to continue this tradition than to acquire the pseudo-sequel of Final Fantasy IV, Final Fantasy IV, The After Years. Just because I can. I can see the appeal of this game, if you like Final Fantasy IV. It's more of that. But I've essentially sworn off this series because I cannot fathom spending hours playing through virtually any of these games anymore. Except Final Fantasy IX. That game rules. Mega Man 9. Mega Man 9 is a fine game. It's difficult, it's fun, it's Mega Man. I liked it, I never beat it, although I did beat all the bosses, just not the end boss. Tornado Man's stage music is still dope. But that's not the point. I proclaim the following. Mega Man 9 was the apex of elderly millennial nostalgia, manifested in the form of a rebooted video game, and it's been downhill ever since. Cast yourselves back to 2008 when Mega Man 9 was announced and subsequently released. We hadn't seen a mainline Mega Man game since Mega Man 8 in 1997, a full 11 years prior. Side note, that game is not as bad as people say it is. Capcom released a fair share of Mega Man spin-offs, including the incredible, albeit diminishing on returns, Mega Man X series. There was the Zero series, the Battle Network series, the ZX games, but no mainline Mega Man game to speak of. Then Capcom announced Mega Man 9. In an admittedly unique trailer, it began with showing Mega Man as he appeared in the NES games, followed by a transformation to his Mega Man 7 appearance, and then the Mega Man 8 appearance. But then, shocker, Mega Man transforms back into his NES iteration. And then cue the gameplay reveal. It was an NES game, complete with the same flickering from that console. I mean, I thought it was fine, but I guess I was missing something, because it seemed like the entire internet blew up with excitement. This thing we loved when we were kids is back, proclaimed the people born from 1975 to 1981. In my opinion, for that generation of people who bridged the Gen X millennial divide, this was peak time for NES nostalgia. They played Mega Man 2 on NES and loved it, and now Mega Man 9 was here, and it's literally the same appearance and format, down to the fact that Mega Man cannot do a charge shot, something that was added in later Mega Man games. And just, yeah, I wasn't in that demographic. So I found it almost annoying that Capcom was abandoning any sort of artistic progression of the character in favor of what I would argue was a bit of a cash grab. Again, the game is good. The style, music, level design, and yes, the NES-style graphics are charming and artistically appealing. But really, can the nostalgia baiting be any more apparent? But again, Tornado Man song. Mega Man 10. New game, same thoughts. I'm told this is not as good. I don't know. I never finished this either. Played a few bosses. That was it. Also, Sheep Man. Bomberman Blast. Bomberman Blast was good. I was living with some family at the time of its release, and we would play this regularly. It supported 8 players, and thanks to the Wii's inclusion of GameCube ports, we were able to cobble together an assortment of controllers to play in a large group. So many laughs and so many fun moments. I mean, how can you go wrong with Bomberman? Dr. Mario Online. It's classic Dr. Mario. Neat graphics, music's the same, it's fun. There's this large pill mode where you point the Wii remote at the screen. I remember playing that and not really caring much for it. Castlevania: The Adventure Rebirth. I've always loved Castlevania. The original game on the NES is one of my favorites from that era. The 2D titles through the PlayStation, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo DS were stellar. Even in the lesser games, I always appreciated the gothic horror that this series gave off. Castlevania The Adventure Rebirth is a remake of a pretty rough Game Boy game. People often cite this as a great game, but I've never gotten beyond the first few levels. There's something about these graphics that always turned me off. Also, the walk animation just looks so weird to me. The game plays well enough, I suppose, but yeah, this one didn't jive with me back in the day, and honestly, I couldn't get into it now. Castlevania Rondo of Blood. One of the more appealing aspects of this era in gaming was how import games became a lot more prevalent thanks to digital storefronts like on the Wii Virtual Console. I had heard for years how Rondo of Blood, a Japanese-only PC Engine game, was stellar. This in particular compared to the dumbed-down iteration titled Dracula X on the Super Nintendo. The game is certainly well done, and the presentation is top-notch, but I just could not get into this one either. I respect it for setting the stage for Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the PlayStation, but beyond that, it's not my cup of tea. So the next few entries are going to be a bit of a lightning round since these games are well-known or beloved, or in many cases both. Starting with Kirby's Adventure, classic NES platforming. If you've played a modern Kirby, then you know what to expect with this late NES release. It's Kirby, and that's predictable, but also a well-done game. Secret of Mana. I own this on the Wii, the SNES Classic, and the Mana collection on the Switch. And yet I've barely played it. I mean, I've tried it, I've played it for a bit, I've tried to get into it, and I don't know, it just wasn't really something I was enjoying as much. I respect it for its great visuals and stunning music. For whatever reason, however, I never felt compelled to play it beyond the first few levels. Super Metroid. Super Metroid is one of the best video games ever made. Genuinely. It set a standard from which so many games adapted, and the atmosphere was also incredible. It really feels like timeless in a way because the mechanics and the elements of the game are just so well put together and clean. So many games after that adapted them. If you picked this up and played it now, I think you would not find too much of a difference between this game back from 1994 and current Metroidvanias. Star Fox 64. So many emotions with Star Fox 64. This was one of the earlier games my brother bought on the Nintendo 64. We played it to death and uncovered all the secret passages and the good ending. Still worth playing today. Nick's Quest. Okay, now getting back to a little bit more in-depth stuff. I recall being excited for Nick's Quest, in so much as one could be excited for a Wii digital game. The graphical style, even in its last-gen SD mode, was really neat, and honestly, I think it still holds up today. You play as this girl, Nyx, and you're going to find Icarus, or something. Playing it again, it was fine. The gliding and jumping were enjoyable, but overall the gameplay doesn't hold up a ton. Bomberman 93. Yeah, more Bomberman. I got this before Bomberman Blast came out. We had fun with it. Moving on. Lost Winds and Lost Winds Winter of the Melodias. Now we're getting into one of the flagship titles on WiiWare. I was really looking forward to this game before its release, and in playing it again, it still holds up. You control the character with the nunchuck, and you point the Wii remote at the screen for doing things like manipulating the wind, helping the character get an extra boost to jump, and so on. This was a game that knew how to use the Wii remote beyond basic waggling. I know that the developer, Frontier, has ported it to the PC in recent years, but I honestly question how good it would be playing without the motion controls. The sequel, Winter of the Melodias, was fun. If memory serves me correctly, it's similar to the first game. These are still worth checking out. Max and the Magic Marker. And here we have another really good use of motion controls. Everyone together now, I never finished Max and the Magic Marker, but in all honesty, this is one I could see myself actually going back and playing. Like Lost Winds, you control the character with the nunchuck, and the Wii Remote acts as a magic marker. You point the Wii Remote at the screen, and you draw objects, such as ramps or boxes, which help Max progress through the level, like over pits or to get to higher elevation. The characters and colorful world are charming, and the opening song has lived rent-free in my head for nearly 20 years. There was a sequel that came out in 2013, originally on the Xbox. It's probably on other consoles now. And I remember trying that out, and it's fine. but I think they got away from the cartoony aesthetic and they made it a little bit more like serious and 2.5D graphics, and I don't think it did as well as this original. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles My Life as King. This was one of the first WiiWare games. It's some sort of town building sim. I never got into this, and in replaying it, I still couldn't get into it. Hard pass. Beyond Oasis. This is a Sega Genesis game that I had heard was good and had Zelda-like combat. Couldn't get into it back in the day, couldn't get into it now. Groove and Blocks. Groove and Blocks is a match 3 game with falling objects similar to Tetris. I remember enjoying it years ago. It was fun to replay it for a hot minute this go around. The music is neat too. World of Goo. Here's another example of a game that escaped the bowels of the Wii and made it onto other platforms. World of Goo still holds up. Simple controls and simple fun of trying to get these blobs to move from one side of the screen to the other. In a way, it kind of reminds me of Lemmings. Really worth the purchase. If you can get it now on another console, then you should definitely get it. Tetris Party. It's Tetris. This guy looks unhappy. Not sure why. Tokitori. Tokitori is another fun puzzle game. You control this little bird creature named Tokitori, and you have to collect eggs scattered about each stage. Fun times. The levels get more challenging, and as you progress, you get new items, and there are new abilities that you attain. This game has since migrated to other consoles. I think it's worth a look still. It's a fun puzzle platformer type game. Drift Mania. You play essentially a slot car game. You see the screen, so you get what you get. Fine, but not worth the purchase. Street Fighter 2. Yay. Bit Trip Beat. I think some people might forget that those Bit Trip runner games that we've gotten over the past decade all started back on the Wii with the likes of Bit Trip Beat. This was one of a series of games that Gaijin Games created. As you see in the footage, the game is essentially a rhythm-infused single-player version of Pong. It's enjoyable, but it can get really challenging. Do-Re-Mi Fantasy Milon's Doki Doki Adventure. Alright, now we're getting to the game that started me on this journey. See, when I was first looking at examining my Wii backlog, I initially thought I'd make it about a few games I purchased just prior to the Wii's store's shutdown in 2019. This game, Do-Re-Mi Fantasy Milon's Doki Doki Adventure, was one of those games. I recall watching a number of videos just prior to the shutdown about hidden gems that you could consider buying before the store closed. Do-Re-Mi Fantasy was on the list, and I thought it looked colorful and interesting since it was a Japanese-only game. It's also connected to a previous game on the NES, Milon's Secret Castle. Well, I bought this game, and it's a platformer. Kind of the standard fare, at least what it felt like to me when I bought it. And when I replayed it for this retrospective, it was fine. Pulse Man. And finally, we have the only other game that I purchased on the Wii shop prior to its closing. Pulse Man. Developed by Game Freak of all people. This game focuses on the titular character and it involves some sort of story about fighting through a cross-dimensional portal. So how is this one? It's okay, I guess. I found the controls a tad wonky, but the game has a really good vibe. And there we have it, my Wii digital game collection. So there are a few games I just didn't bother talking about. Honestly, I think it's because I forgot to re-download them, and I don't even remember what they were. But there is one section of games I didn't talk about. Strong Bed's cool game for attractive people. I am a huge Homestar Runner fan, and I loved those episodic point-and-click games. I started the series over again on the PC. I played, I think, the first one, not fully, but I just really enjoy the humor and the style of the game, and I figured rather than giving this series like a 2-sentence review, I'll look into maybe doing this for a future video. So after reviewing all these little odd games on my Nintendo Wii, what's my verdict? I just don't really have an interest in going back to this console almost at all. There are a few games that I could genuinely see myself booting back up and maybe even doing a recap on in the future. In particular, the Lost Winds games and Max and the Magic Marker. I think those genuinely still hold up. As for the console in general, in my opinion, the motion control gimmick had its time, and while there are some ways companies have implemented the motion functionality well, like the examples I just gave with Lost Winds and Max and the Magic Marker, I find it just annoying and difficult to go back to playing with that control scheme. I am someone who obsesses over the manufactured need to play all the video games that I own, at least at some point in my life. And it's for this reason that I am actually kind of happy that I did this, because I gave each of these games another shot and I documented it. And I think I'm totally fine with putting the Wii to rest and saying thank you for the good times. And with that, thank you for listening to my personal rambling retrospective on the Nintendo Wii.